Hello, 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 88 BC Africa Village. This is episode 3 in our Blockchain and Fintech Series. And I'm particularly excited about this one today because we're featuring our first blockchain expert. Merrill and I have known each other for a while, and it's exciting to see her transition into the blockchain space as well. So just to throw it back a bit, we featured Leanne Lancaster in our first episode, and she is the Chief Growth Officer at Mama Money, and she's also one of our board members. So we chatted about her journey into the fintech space and just the infinite opportunities that exist, especially continentally, in the fintech space. And our second episode was with Janine Sickmeyer. She's from the States, and hers is a legal tech journey, but I could not share her with you, simply because she organically grew her startup, and then it was acquired. I mean, that for me is not a startup story that you hear all the time. So I simply had to feature her, and hers is a bonus episode in the series. So today I am so honored to feature the powerful, the dynamic Merryl Ford. Oh, Merryl. So in episode 3 of our Blockchain and Fintech Series, we're going to be chatting a bit about plugging the leaky public purse. Corruption has been highlighted through COVID-19. Over the past few months, it's been amplified. I think it's always been something that we've had to deal with, but recently it's just been amplified. So we're going to chat a bit about that and how blockchain can play a role in plugging that leaky public purse. So guys, Merrill is the Manager Emerging Opportunities at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research at the Merryl Institute. And she holds a blockchain strategy qualification from Saïd Business School. I mean, Merrill is just one of those people that I have an immense respect for. We worked together in my first business. She was a client, and this is 8 years ago. So the beauty of both of us being passionate about the blockchain space and the opportunities that exist is that we can have this discussion today, Merrill. So welcome, and as I've said, I'm really excited to be featuring you today. Very excited to be chatting to you. So welcome. I am going to hand over to you, Merrill. Introduce yourself and just share with us your career, your journey into the Merryl space, as well as how you've made your way into the blockchain space and what excites you about this technology.
Thanks, Antoinette. Wow, what an intro. Antoinette, from my side as well, thank you so much for including me in this. I think that, you know, you've come like such a far way since we first met 8 years ago. I mean, we had an immediate connection 8 years ago. We did an amazing project together that I think kind of changed my life and maybe changed your life a bit. You know, looking at education opportunities for ICT in very rural Eastern Cape in Koffenwaber. So, I mean, it was one of the highlights of my career to kind of try and do something that really makes a difference right on the ground. So it was a lovely project, and it was lovely to work with you on that.
Same here.
Just a bit about...
So if I can add to that, same here. When I reflect back on Afrofusion, that project is definitely one, even if I think about it now, that just tugs at my heartstrings. I mean, even for me to be able to go to Koffenwaber, walk around bare feet, go to those schools, and do the work that we did was incredible. So yeah, it's definitely changed my life, absolutely.
Fantastic. A bit about me. So, you know, as you can probably see by the video, I'm very, very, very old. So a very, very long time ago, I was a CSIR bursary student. I studied, did a computer science degree at Rhodes University. And, you know, what was fantastic for me was that I kind of entered the world of work at the same time as, now I'm really aging myself, but at the same time as computers in the workplace, at home, started to become ubiquitous. So it was the start of kind of, you know, everyone being able to use a computer. So that was long ago. So I started off kind of, you know, doing things in computing services, helping people to figure out, I mean, these very, very clever scientists, etc., that I was in awe of, actually I realized weren't that clever when it came to computers. So I had to kind of help them how to actually use the computers. And then I was also very, very lucky because soon after that was the start of kind of the internet. This was before the World Wide Web. This was kind of the internet itself connecting, you know, people and countries and organizations together. So I was part of some of the planning, and I was, you know, felt very privileged to be kind of working with such great minds in the country around that time. Fast forward a few years, and I was given the opportunity to start an ISP within the CSIR called CSIR Internet Services. It was one of the very first in the country. I was kind of a bit terrified because I was still quite young, didn't quite know what to do, but you know, I was given an opportunity and I grabbed it, and you know, it was a perfect opportunity for me to grow and kind of figure out things for myself and realize that, you know, I could do anything I put my mind to. And I think that's important for many females in the ICT world in particular. You know, you can do everything that men can do and better, probably. So then what was quite interesting is we were actually bought by Mnet, Commercial Internet Services. It was kind of part of the CSIR. So we were bought out, and it's now known as MWeb. So I kind of started MWeb a very long time ago at the CSIR, believe it or not. We didn't get anything from the, you know, unfortunately, you know, you hear about these startups that sell their business for billions. No, we didn't get anything, unfortunately, but that's the way things sometimes work. I left MWeb then eventually, and I went to IBM for a while. And then kind of, you know, I just wasn't doing things that I felt was making a difference. So I actually returned back to the CSIR. Then kind of drove ICT in education, and that's where we met, and we did some very exciting projects. Actually, while we were doing, you'll remember that we had this concept of, and this was like a long time ago, this is 2014, I think, quite a while back, maybe a bit earlier even. And we kind of were trying to do things that were a bit out of the box. So what we were doing with our teachers is we were developing a badging system. So you remember you had to design all those badges, etc. So the badging, so that kind of, and I started looking at what digital badging systems were around at that stage. And at that stage, blockchain was kind of in its infancy, but there were some projects that were looking at using blockchain to do digital badging for skills recognition. So that's, believe it or not, that's kind of when I started hearing about blockchain and Bitcoin, etc. And then a few years afterwards, I realized, you know, this is actually becoming serious. And I was my focus has been on blockchain beyond cryptocurrencies, blockchain beyond fintech. You know, what can you do with blockchain to change the world? And you know, that's my interest at the moment. There was an opportunity, the South African Department for Science and Innovation were keen to develop a blockchain strategy from a research and development perspective. So I wrote the strategy for them, and as part of that strategy, I created this whole kind of ecosystem approach to supporting blockchain in the country called the South African National Blockchain Alliance, or SANBA. And luckily, they were very happy to actually provide a little bit of funding just to get everything going. So the idea is that SANBA is kind of owned by the ecosystem, that we've kind of tried to support blockchain principles in the way we work as much as possible. And it's basically trying to connect opportunities to people, people to opportunities, the markets to blockchain, research and development to companies, etc., etc. So we kind of a connector within this whole ecosystem. And we've done some exciting things. We were only really launched in April this year, soon after we started lockdown. We'd organized this major event inviting the minister and all sorts of VIPs, and then kind of lockdown hit and we had to kind of change pace, and we did a very exciting and successful digital launch. So now Sandba is active. We're doing our best to kind of stimulate blockchain in the country. We're working closely with government, specifically Department of Science and Innovation, and things are starting to happen. Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love the fact that we aligned on the notion, I guess, at this point, that blockchain can change the world. It can.
It can change the world. I mean, I was involved in the start of the internet, the start of the web. One of a colleague and I developed the very first commercial website in the country, which is the CSIR's own website. And it's that same exciting feeling that something is about to happen, that I had like in the pit of my stomach. and I think blockchain speaks to me kind of on a kind of an ethical basis. I mean, on things that I feel are important, on things that are, on enabling kind of equal access to things, enabling transparency, enabling trust, all of those things that we just so miss in the country, and not only in the country. No, it's not a South African issue, it's a world issue, and for me, blockchain forms the trust foundation. That's the foundation on which the whole fourth industrial revolution will rest. It's a way to get back to what's important in the world.
Absolutely, Merryl. And I am so excited for that transition to just come back to being human. That business will take a human centricity. And so as part of that human centricity, trust, transparency plays such an important role. And that's where blockchain comes in, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me, what was the best piece of advice that you've received on your journey to date?
I've been thinking about that. I've been mentored and supported by so many amazing people. It's very difficult to kind of, distill it into one piece of advice. I mean, I live and learn all the time. So I kind of take advice and I take everything in. I kind of watch how people handle things, and I learn from the most wonderful mentors that I've had at the CSIR and at other places as well. So it's difficult for me to say. I mean, from a kind of a technology perspective, when I start looking at kind of solving problems using technology, someone said to me, the first question you ask a client is, what is the problem? So if there isn't a problem, then actually there's nothing to solve. Okay, so whenever I have a meeting with a potential client, or I say, well, okay, what is the problem you want to solve? But for me, it's not advice. I mean, for me, what made a difference was that I was young, inexperienced, kind of in my first job, trying to find my feet. And it's quite difficult also as a female in some of these very techno-focused environments. And someone gave me an opportunity to do something. So someone said to me, hey, this internet stuff looks quite interesting. would you like to drive would you like to drive an ISP based at the CSIR? And I said, yes, I'd love to do it. I mean, I was kind of shaking in my boots because I really didn't know what I was doing. But, I got the support I needed to get. And often that's all you need as a young person in a new environment, for someone to actually just believe in you and believe that you can do it. And kind of magic happens. And all of a sudden you can do things you never thought you were capable of. So for me, it's not advice, but it's the fact that someone actually believed in me and gave me the opportunity and then supported me. So I want to give a shout out to Richard Webb. He was the manager who actually pulled me in, and it changed my life.
Wow, Merryl. And I think as founders, we can learn from that, because I think especially female founders, and I've seen this so many times, I've been there myself, is that we tend to micromanage anyone that we employ. We tend to micromanage our employees, and that comes from a sense of insecurity. I know, at least for me it was, those first few years in business. And so I've had to learn to let go. I've had to learn to not be such a control freak, right? So the fact that you were so supported and you were given an opportunity in a space that was fresh, and they allowed, for lack of a better word, you to run with it, to do what you needed to do, and they gave you the space to expand and to grow. I think we can learn from that as founders. When you employ, when you have someone that has so much potential, and I'm sure they saw that in you, give them the freedom to experiment, give them the freedom to fail, give them the freedom to, and the space to do and to grow and to fail and to learn, right?
Yeah.
So that's such a good piece of advice, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also a micromanager, I'm afraid. I'm a perfectionist, and it's really tough, But what I have tried to do is kind of, in the CSIR, I want to say maybe of the past, because CSIR is changing. By the way, we kind of have gone through a major restructuring, so there is no Morocco anymore, by the way, just so that people know. And I've tried to mentor youngsters that I see have potential as well. Because, you come into the workplace, you're very bright. A lot of these youngsters are amazing, and I'm excited when I see them, but they get pushed into a little pigeonhole. And, I want to see an innovation environment, because we're an innovation organization. I want to see an innovation environment that supports exactly those things that you mentioned: freedom to fail, to experiment, etc., and to create your job yourself, to kind of create what you enjoy doing, and know that actually you can kind of figure out how to make it happen within that particular environment. You don't have to be tasked with things all the time. I think a lot of youngsters, the workplace has become very structured and very, bureaucratic, I guess, to some extent. And our poor youngsters, their spirits are being crushed. Maybe that's a bit, negative, but their spirits are being crushed. They come out of university, they're excited, this is their first job, they've got all these ideas floating around in their head, and then they're put into like a very structured environment, and you've got to do this for that long, and this is what I expect. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that we need to provide them some structure, but we also need to provide them some opportunity to experiment and grow. And I think that's, the top companies like Google, that's what they do. They give them, you have some free time every week to work on your pet project. But I'm also seeing this in South Africa as well. My son has just applied for his first job. He's just finished a computer science degree, and this organization, I know, time, and this organization that he's joined I mean, they do exactly that. So it's a software development company, and they give the youngsters opportunities to play with the technology, and they even have an environment where if you come up with a good idea, they will actually fund it and not take part of that equity. So you can actually come up with ideas within that environment. So, I want to see, I was so excited when I saw that. I want to see many more companies in the country doing that kind of thing.
And you're so spot on, Merryl. I think as female founders, we have the opportunity to structure our startups, our businesses in that way. We don't have to adopt an old and stoic way of doing business. I think especially as we move into our next normal, it is reviewing and sitting yourself down as a founder and asking yourself some crucial questions around how can I become more human-centric? And in that human centricity, give my employees the space to explore, to test, to experiment, to fail. And if there's an opportunity to fund an app or anything that they've developed, let's do that. Let's look at that. But I think, yes, I appreciate corporate South Africa, I appreciate the public sector, but I think that drive can come from the startup space, can come from the SME space, right? Where we have the opportunity to do things significantly differently. But it takes courage. It takes courage to take yourself out of that comfort zone. I think especially if you come out of corporate, we tend to emulate the corporate that we've come out of.
Yeah.
I did it, and so I want to challenge our female founders today. Don't emulate, rather look at fresh opportunities as we go into our next normal. As you strategize for this next normal, how do you do that around your people space as well? So thank you for that, Merryl. Really, really, really important to note. So, as you guys can hear, Merryl, I am very excited about the blockchain space. And especially for female founders to start thinking about how to incorporate this tech into the existing businesses or to chat to their supply chain. So for instance, if a female founder is in the fashion space and just importing material from another country, that supply chain, how can she actually get that onto the block already, right? So just to start thinking about the different opportunities that exist in this. But do you believe that we are doing enough to create seats at the blockchain table for female founders? And if not, how do we accelerate this process? Because there's also this myth, Merryl, that blockchain is Bitcoin. And I think when people hear blockchain and they have that association, they don't necessarily want to even dip their big toe into the space, right? So what can we do to bust that myth, but also accelerate in having more seats at the blockchain table?
We need to do, I agree. I think we need to do more. So Sandba, it's one of the things, obviously being female, that I'm trying to drive within Sandba as well. So last month, we covered the cost of two female entrepreneurs, startups, at the European Blockchain Convention. So that was amazing, and we're very happy to do more of that. We've also been approached by another female entrepreneur who wants to develop a blockchain course specifically for females. So we're looking at how we can support her to do that as well. So from our side, we're trying to do our best. I think that, it starts a lot earlier. It starts with the girl child. We need to stop stereotyping our girl children as parents, as teachers, etc. Buy them that Lego set. Let them join the robotics club. Let them play games, computer games. We need them to believe in themselves, and we need them not to be afraid of technology. Technology can be your enemy, but it can be your friend as well. Okay, so if we have enough young females coming out of the schooling system through the university or the skills development system, then it will happen naturally, because they hopefully will have learned to believe in themselves and to believe that they can do anything they set their mind to. They refuse to be pushed into the corner. I mean, we're seeing a lot more females emerging in the technology world at the moment. So, you know, it's, as I said, it starts like from the day your daughter is born, and you support her all the way through that, and you make sure that she chooses to do what she wants to do, and she feels empowered, and then it will happen naturally. Yeah, I'm not sure what else needs to be done from your perspective, but you know, I've met some amazing female founders and entrepreneurs, and they all believe in themselves. They're all optimistic about the future. They all, you know, have suffered perhaps in the past. And I think the great thing that we as females have is heart. We have the passion, we have the heart, and we can do it. We can do it.
Absolutely, Merryl. So I think you're so spot on in terms of catching them while they're young and exposing them to as many opportunities as possible, right? So programming for when they're 5 or 7. Like, I just think about, you know, when I was part of Silicon Cape, I said to them, we need to upskill the entire country. I want to see kids code, grannies program, you know, everybody. You know, so I think you're so right, Merryl, but it takes an ecosystem, right? It takes a village. It takes a determined group of people that's going to say, not only do we want to have a robust blockchain space, but now, as early as this piece of technology is, especially to the South African market, I believe, let's ensure that we bring enough female founders to have a seat at this table, and not just female founders, but women in the blockchain space, so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're not scurrying around trying to find female founders, right? Trying to find women in this space, as we do, but let's do that now. And I think, for instance, hosting hackathons with universities, with maybe their 3rd year comp science students, just around blockchain, is possibly one way to go about it. Accelerator programs like ours, focusing on blockchain specifically. So we'll be launching our blockchain bootcamp, which will be a first for us during International Women's Month next year. So we'll launch it on the 1st of March, and it's exciting for me, you know, and again, this would be for female founders in the tech space and want to explore how to plug blockchain into their existing startup. And so we'll journey with them to test and prove whether or not it can work, and then obviously get them funding ready, and then chuck them back into their businesses after 12 weeks. You know, so I think it's a concerted effort. It is not just talking about it, but for me, it's taking a very deliberate and taking a concerted approach to say, over the next 5 years, how many female founders do we want to have sitting at the blockchain table? And that being said, you know, are they able to bring in more players into the space through employment, for instance, but creating not your quintessential employment space like we've just chatted about, but employing entrepreneurs so that they can go off and launch off on their own, you know, and so it just becomes a very robust and exciting and workable model, I think, you know.
Sounds amazing. I mean, as I said, we've spoken to, well, we've dealt with and are busy trying to support one of our female founders who, together with her husband, so they're joint founders, they're looking at how to formalize the kind of informal wig and hair system in the country. I mean, I'm so impressed with what they're trying to do and what they've done. Their system is already, their supply chain management system has already been developed on the blockchain. I mean, if anyone's interested in, you know, supporting them and they watch your channel, please contact Sanba. because we're struggling to get support from government. I'm not quite sure why, but you know, they have such amazing ideas and concepts, and you know, they can change. They can actually bring. So I mean, I've seen all the figures. It's like we're talking about billions of rands from the informal economy into the formal economy. So you know, let's do it as South Africa.
Yeah. What you and I can do after this, Merryl, is probably chat about that. Maybe we can plug it into more the VC space, right? And see if they can VC funding. It sounds like they've already got traction. So probably not pre-seed, right? So, okay, let's see how we can support
them. Talk about it, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, we can have that discussion and look at how we support them to take it to the next level. Okay, so now on to why we're actually here today, which is the discussion around our leaky public purse, Merryl. As we've said earlier on, you know, COVID has just amplified corruption through the PPE procurement. And when I hear that, when I see that, the only thing that comes to mind for me is, yes, we need to address the as is, but what's the to be? You know, where are we going? How does tech play a role? So is our president and our ministers thinking about technology playing a role in plugging this public purse? I think blockchain can, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. I mean, definitely blockchain can, and it's been shown in other countries that it can. I think the problem at the moment is that this whole 4IR thing and COVID, and you know, the focus in 4IR has very much been on initially Internet of Things, and then AI, drones, etc., etc. So they're quite far along in terms of integration and implementation in the public and private sectors. You know, everyone's using big data now. Data science is a major focus within universities, etc., etc. So blockchain, people are still wary of, and I think it's lack of education and knowledge. I think you said previously that people confuse blockchain and Bitcoin. Absolutely agree. And what Sandba's trying to do in this environment is we're trying to educate government as much as possible. We'll be holding a course that's specifically focused on government officials in November, just to make them aware of, you know, what are the opportunities, what actually is blockchain, why is it actually not the same as Bitcoin, how can government services use blockchain? I mean, to us it seems obvious because we've been exposed to it and we understand what blockchain is. I'm hoping that as part of that workshop that we're going to be having with them, we can start reinventing new ways of doing things in the public sector. I mean, blockchain and COVID, huge opportunities. I mean, with blockchain, you can trace exactly from cradle to grave. You can ensure that if someone says that this PPE is actually according to standards, international standards, you can actually check to make sure that because I mean, that's what's happened. People have gone and, I mean, they've bought millions of rands worth of PPE that is worthless because, you know, they found someone in China who's manufacturing it. And, you know, with blockchain, that won't happen anymore. You know, you're all part of the kind of blockchain ecosystem. You all have access, let's say, to a supply chain network. You can ensure that that PPE has gone through stringent quality tests, etc., just by looking at whether what has been done on the blockchain. So blockchain provides transparency, especially in an environment like COVID, where, you know, this whole COVID thing fell onto us like a ton of bricks, and the world wasn't ready in terms of you know, procurement systems. I mean, people took advantage, you know. I mean, we have major fraud within the procurement environment in South Africa. Things like providing food packages and food parcels to those that were starving and hungry. I mean, I find it so incredible that people would steal from people who are starving and children who are starving. For me, it's just, I mean, you are the worst of the worst if you actually do that. There's no hope for you. I mean, imagine if you could actually, as an individual, so, I didn't want to, I was worried about this, I mean, I was thinking, what can I do to support the poor? But there was no way I was going to donate to the Solidarity Fund because it's not transparent. Yes, maybe it's becoming more transparent now, okay? But, I want to know if I actually, let's say, donate 1,000 Rand a month, what happens to that 1,000 Rand? The blockchain can actually show you where that 1,000 Rand went, who spent it on what, and did that get to the end user, okay? And that's the power of the blockchain as well. The other things, I mean, just in general, in government, if you have like a proper digital identity system, for example, because at the moment there's no, nothing much is happening around digital identity in the country, other than the private sector. I'm talking more from the government side. Okay, there's a lot of exciting projects happening in the financial sector around digital identity. But imagine if when you actually buy something online, you can be sure that that organization actually does exist and the goods will arrive. Okay, imagine if, because everyone has a digital identity and you're able to trace exactly what happens, you wouldn't have people that are long dead receiving salaries in the public sector, for example. What other examples? When you go to, there's an amazing project that's happening around digital identity in Canada at the moment. So it's basically, you basically provide your details, your personal details or your company details only once to any government entity. No one is, and no one is going to ask you to enter all those details multiple times or to photocopy your ID and fax it through, or imagine all of the fraud. I mean, I get frustrated because I want to know what's happened to my ID, copy of my ID that I had to give to my bank to open up a bank account. Where does that go? We've had this the major problem in South Africa with all of, what is it? Something like 4 million people's details being leaked to the dark web. I mean, oh my God, since when actually does someone else have access to my data? I mean, it's quite frustrating. There is, there's some quite exciting things that are happening though. So we've been in contact with a young entrepreneur, male, unfortunately, not a female entrepreneur or startup. And he was frustrated because his mother was unable to get any opportunity to tender for projects at municipalities. It all went to friends, and the whole process was corrupt. So he was a student at the time. I think he's now doing his articles. So he's developed a blockchain-based procurement system for municipalities, and he's going to be piloting it at one of the Western Cape municipalities. So it's integrated into the existing system, etc., etc. So that's the kind of thing we want. We want this energy and this can-do attitude from young people who are reimagining how the world should work. And, there's a lot of negative things said about, the different generations and, generation. I don't even know what probably generation XYZ or something. I don't know. But, if I look at my kids, so my kids are both Generation Z, and they're friends as well. And, this is a generation that's going to have to fix all the problems that our generation caused. And I speak for myself. You're still young enough, I think. All of this mess that the world is in at the moment. And, I look at their kind of their personalities in general, Generation Z, the Generation Z cohort, and they are responsible, they care about the environment, they care about, honesty, ethics, etc., etc. So, as sad as I am that we actually going to be leaving a world to them, I think they're going to help fix this world. And, we need to give them the opportunity as much as possible to help fix this world.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right, Merryl. I remember going to Cape Town and Woodstock Exchange. You have these young kids on skateboards with their man buns, Very different to Joburg. Very, very different to Joburg. And I remember going, whoa, this is the future. Because as much as he's on his skateboard with his man bun, he cares deeply about the planet, about people, about where we're going, and there's almost like a very innate and deliberate approach to life, and very unapologetic too,
Yeah, absolutely. They speak the truth to power,
And, the other thing is, when it comes to leadership, I believe that we need to have leadership with the wherewithal to actually get this done. I know that blockchain probably also scares public sector because of the transparency that it creates. So fraud will be amplified, especially around the initial implementation. So a lot of people probably don't want to, because lots of skeletons will fall out of the closet, I think. However, I think we need leadership that will say, fine, we understand that that's going to happen as we go on this journey of transparency and accountability. Let the skeletons fall out of the closet. Let's clean this up. And then, obviously, as we continue on this journey, a service delivery will take a different shape and form, and what the people on the ground actually need will get to them. Our communities will look different. Our education system might look different, right? So back to ICT for Red and what we started there all those years ago might actually start happening. So I sincerely believe that, as much as I'm not going to say it's a dependency on government and the public sector, leadership plays a crucial role here. And I think we need the type of leadership that's bold and courageous and will say, it doesn't matter what falls out of the closet as we go and embark on this journey, let it fall. And be it as it may, so that we can, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, have a very different South Africa, have a very different approach to service delivery, have a very different approach to being a public servant, right? Because ultimately it's about ensuring that our communities are better, that our employment rate, which is probably the only thing that keeps me up at night at times, that is reduced significantly. So yeah, I do believe that leadership plays a role here. However, if they don't come to the party, I do believe too that we'll still be able to get this done. Not just from a South African perspective, but from a continental perspective. You've said there are many projects that are ongoing, exciting projects that are happening. My only hope is that our public sector leadership will join this journey and really become deliberate in fixing things, like sincerely, not just politically, but genuinely.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm being too optimistic when it comes to that, but I hope so. I really hope so.
I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, I think it's leadership, and there's some amazing people out there in the public sector. There really are. I mean, there are a few bad apples that kind of taint the public sector for many others. But, I've worked with some amazing people in government who actually care and want to make a difference. I think politics gets in the way, okay? Whichever political party, I mean, really, the whole political system, it's not attracting the right people, first of all. It's attracting those who want power, not those who necessarily want to make a difference and make the world a better place. The people, they join NGOs that have no power whatsoever, who want to make the world a better place. So we need to, I think in the wake of the 4IR, we need to kind of rethink government, rethink the way we are, the way we do, the way we play, the way we work. Let's reimagine a world that, enables each of us to reach our full potential. A world where, no one is hungry. Yes, I'm much more optimistic. I'm not, I'm kind of, my husband calls it I've forgotten what he calls it now. He calls it, you're doing your bleeding heart liberal kind of act. But I believe that if enough people want to make a difference and improve things in South Africa and in the world, it will happen. We just need to figure out how to harness all of that energy and all of that potential in our country. And in some cases, leadership, I'm not going to say leadership, government should maybe stand back and help people to make it happen if they can't make it happen to themselves. Honestly, stand back, stop putting bureaucracy, and saying, but there's issues with regulations. Yes, we know the issues with regulations with all of these new technologies, because when the regulations were put out 100 years ago, there was no AI, there was no blockchain, etc. Let's give people a chance to try things out, to do proof of concepts. And I think those are the opportunities for our blockchain community in South Africa. Come up with proof of concepts to fix the things, starting that. Remember I said that someone said to me, what is, your first question should always be, what is the problem before you try and solve it? So there's huge opportunities out there in this space. You can actually really make a difference.
Absolutely, Merryl. And for me, and I've said this when I started on my entrepreneurial journey 16 years ago, for me, government should only create a conducive environment for me to be able to do what I need to do.
Yes.
And like I said, then take a step back and let the entrepreneurs drive the change. Let the NGOs drive the change. Let the corporate sector drive the change. But their job really is simply to create a conducive environment and to have discussions around regulation and making it easier and, right? Yeah. But their job is not our job. They need to leave it to us to do what we need to do. Merryl, this has been an incredible chat. I am even more excited and more optimistic about the future. Sometimes I think, I'm sitting in my corner so excited about blockchain and the opportunities it presents, and I start reading about what's happening internationally. But it's heartwarming to sit across from a South African woman who's just as excited about this technology as I am, and understands the opportunities that it can create for us as a country. So thank you for taking time today. I deeply appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can chat again sometime.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll be in touch about the WIG startup in the blockchain space. Let's look at how we can start it.
Yes.
And
cool.
Again, a huge thank you for taking time today.
Thanks, Antoinette. All the best, eh?
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.